New footage shows this is how Ukrainian FPV drones grenades blow up Russian soldiers in Avdiivka trenches. Nowadays, Kyiv says it plans to manufacture around 1 million first-person view FPV drones next year, as part of expanding efforts to build uncrewed aircraft of different types. Used for reconnaissance and attack, the FPV drone is a weapon that has had a significant impact on the battlefield, as well as producing some of the most dramatic video footage of the war so far. However, there are real questions about whether such an output is even possible. Ukraine also plans to build more than 11,000 medium and long-range attack drones next year, Alexander Kamyshin, Ukraine's Minister for Strategic Industries, said. All production facilities are ready, and contracting for 2024 begins, Kamyshin said on the Telegram messaging app. Among the long-range attack drones, it's planned to build at least 1,000 drones with a range of more than 1,000 kilometers, 620 miles, Kamyshin added. As well as the undoubted effectiveness of FPV drones on the battlefield and their relatively low procurement cost, the move has very likely also been driven by Russia's increasing armory of the same kinds of drones. Ramping up production of such drones in Ukraine also has an economic imperative, helping to boost local industry. This is in addition to providing greater autonomy from Western sources of military materiel amid questions about the continued flow of weapons and funds to Kyiv. However, the viability of Ukraine producing such huge numbers of drones, even fairly low-tech ones, very much remains to be seen. Still, even the goal shows how important FPV drone supremacy on the battlefield is becoming. While the next video is very possibly drone-related, too, showing a Ukrainian soldier dismantling a 300mm rocket from a Russian-made BM-30 Smerch multiple rocket launcher to obtain the cluster munitions inside. Ukraine has made extensive use of cluster munitions for the novel purpose of using their submunitions to arm small drones, which is very likely what we are seeing here. Undoubtedly, this is a highly dangerous practice, but one that we have seen before, and will likely see again, especially with a growing appetite for small munitions to arm FPV drones. Not surprisingly, Ukraine and Russia offer deeply differing perspectives on how the war on the battlefield is developing, as we head toward the end of the year. But regarding the progress of the respective sides, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russia hasn't gotten any result from this year. Zelensky also said he remains committed to restoring Ukraine to its pre-2014 territory, including the return of Crimea. However, he also said that battlefield tactics might be changed after careful consideration of the results of military operations this year. In its latest intelligence assessment, the UK Ministry of Defence says that Ukrainian forces are pivoting to a defensive posture along much of the front line. This involves strengthening positions along these lines, seen as a response to Zelensky's call last month for faster fortification in key sectors. The UK Ministry of Defence's daily briefing states, "In recent weeks, Ukraine has mobilized a concerted effort to improve field fortifications as its forces pivot to a more defensive posture along much of the front line." In one part of the project, Ukraine has worked to improve defenses along its border with Belarus with Dragon's Teeth, razor wire, and anti-tank ditches as of mid-December 2023. Russia continues local offensive options in several sectors, but individual attacks are rarely above platoon size. A major Russian breakthrough is unlikely, and overall, the front is characterized by stasis. What Zelensky's future war plans call for remains unclear, but the Ukrainian leader has also said that he is developing a proposal to mobilize between 450,000 and 500,000 more Ukrainians into the armed forces. Nevertheless, he described this as a highly sensitive issue that would require further discussions between the military and government. Russia's President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, told defense officials in Moscow that the Russian military currently has the momentum. "Our troops are holding the initiative," Putin said during an end-of-year meeting with his defense leadership. "We are effectively doing what we think is needed, doing what we want, and the Royal Australian Air Force, RAAF, has provided imagery of its E-7A Wedgetail Airborne Early Warning and Control (AEW&C) aircraft during missions while deployed to Germany, where it is helping keep watch over military and humanitarian supplies entering Ukraine under Operation Kudu." The news of the Wedgetail's deployment was broken in June by Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Berlin following talks with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Starting in October, the deployment is also seen as an important stepping stone for the E-7 in Europe, with the AEW&C recently having been selected by NATO. A weapon fairly seldom seen since its delivery to Ukraine is the ground-launched version of the Hellfire precision-guided missile, seen here purportedly in action somewhere in eastern Ukraine. Supplied by Sweden, the Hellfire Shore Defense System, HSDS, uses a derivative of the US AGM-114C Hellfire anti-tank missile and was sent to Ukraine by Sweden in an aid package in the summer of 2022, which you can read about in more detail in this past War Zone report. Also known in Swedish service as the RBS-17, the weapon was developed for coastal defense but is primarily used in an inland attack role by Ukrainian forces. In October 2022, President Zelensky signed a decree formally declaring that Ukrainian talks with Putin were impossible, after Russia claimed to have annexed 4 regions of southern and eastern Ukraine. Kyiv is only willing to consider a peace deal if based on a full Russian withdrawal from all the territory it has seized. Russia's President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, refuses to do that, but he told defense officials in Moscow today that he would not give up what is ours.
Мина! Пострел! Пострел!